On a somber note, Hollywood lost one of its legends this week. The death of Paul Newman at the age of 83 to cancer was incredibly saddening, but it's time now to reflect on what an incredible life and career this guy had in the movies, and not just in the movies, but through his humanitarian work as well. You know, there's plenty of young people out there, and it's just unfortunate, who simply know him as the guy from the salad dressing. But you know what? He was probably happy with that, because he raised millions of dollars for various philanthropic causes from doing that. He's a true icon in the world of movies and philanthropy.
Yeah, over $250 million given to charity. You know, Christy Lemure, the AP a film critic who's one of our guests in the roundup, she's been there in the past, she'll be back in the future. She made an interesting point in her appreciation of Newman. She talked about how Newman was this sort of rare breed, a star we actually didn't know much about, and that we know too much about sort of everybody else. We know too much about Tom Cruise and so many other young stars. And then she mentioned that maybe even Johnny Depp was sort of in Newman's, maybe in Newman's league as far as sort of creating a personality away from the tabloids like Newman did by moving to Connecticut 50 years ago. But I even think it's more than that, because nothing against Depp, who's obviously an incredibly talented actor, carving out these sort of interesting, quirky roles for himself. But it's almost like his privacy is part of his persona. Like, look at me being private. I don't think it's not like I think he's in the market, not intentionally, but that has become part of it.
Sure.
But whereas Newman just wanted some damn privacy. It was so authentic, like the roles he plays. I mean, 50 years ago, he's tired of L.A. He just moved. He moved. He stayed with. He could have had any starlet in the world. It's Paul Newman, for crying out loud. He stays with Joanne Woodward for 50 years. Obviously, he was a good father based on what you're reading about his kids, and a guy to just leave Hollywood at the height of his career and then stay there, and then find in the 70s this other passion he has for auto racing. And he was, by all accounts, a pretty good driver, to say, and I'm not even talking about the charity.
And then even later on in his life and his career as an actor, he took on some great performances. I mean, he's great in The Road to Perdition.
He is,
and it's forgotten, and it sounds silly to mention, but he's great in Cars. I actually got to interview him for the movie Cars, and he lends a voice to that. And so younger kids get to say they've fallen in love with Paul Newman and his voice, at least. But making that transition from a young leading man to an older actor and part of an ensemble cast can be very difficult for some, but he did it flawlessly, effortlessly. And I'm glad you mentioned sort of the difference between his celebrity and what the actors are dealing with a lot today. Part of it's technology and not really their choice. It's a lot easier to be invasive into the lives of Brad Pitt and George Clooney and Matt Damon and those guys, but they're direct descendants of Paul Newman in the sense that they're able to use their celebrity to raise issues and raise awareness around various philanthropic causes that they believe in. I mean, Matt Damon and Pitt and Clooney, they do so much charity around the world, and part of them has to be inspired by the legacy that Newman left.
You know, we always mention those people, but it seems like we should at least mention Angelina Jolie. I mean, she gets made fun of all the time, and I know you're not doing that, but for crying out loud, all the mock, she's adopted 4 kids. I mean, God bless her, and you're right, and that is
from Paul Newman, this idea of sacrifice, and you sacrifice maybe some of your privacy, if you will, or whatever it is, but to use your star power to raise awareness. But let's not forget why he became a star in the first place. If you go back and you look at his list of films, they're just institutions in movies. They're things that everybody who loves movies has to go back and see. You have to be familiar with Cool Hand Luke and The Verdict and The Hustler and there's The Sting, and there's so many great performances. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid is arguably the greatest buddy movie ever.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because the great thing about that movie, and I mentioned on the show, it's the first movie I ever loved. I saw it in a theater, probably 75 or 76 on Long Island. It came out in '69, but it was still in a big theater over the summer. And I saw this movie, and I thought, this is the greatest thing that could ever be. Movies are great. Everybody was talking about movies. They knew what they were saying. The idea that the hero, he for crying out loud, we learned Butch Cassidy's never even shot anybody. He doesn't know how to use a gun. He's smarter than everybody else. He's funnier than everybody else. He's more clever than everybody else. You see it when he plays Henry Gondorff in The Sting, too. Stays a step ahead of everybody. And that's the kind of hero I want. I don't care whether you're Stallone or Schwarzenegger and you got a bigger gun. I want you to sort of have a bigger soul, to sound lame, and that's what Newman did.
A true icon in the world of Hollywood, if there ever was one, and a movie star in every sense of the word.
And just real quick, also we got to mention, I mean, such a great, one of among the method actors, and you see one of his earlier roles, the role that brought him in. Excuse me, Somebody Up There Likes Me. It's not even that great a movie, but man, he's good in it. And you just see, he gave himself fully to every part and somehow managed, even at his death at 83, 50 years later, we still wonder what was Paul Newman really like. And in this day and age, that's impressive.
A great loss for Hollywood. One of the great actors to ever live, Paul Newman.